Marcus Chen stood at the edge of the crystal platform, watching the alien city spread out below him. The buildings were made of the same strange blue crystal that seemed to grow from the ground itself. Zeltara was unlike any planet he had visited in his 5 years as a mercenary. Stay close to the delegation, Captain Rodriguez had told him before they landed. These Velkari take their honor very seriously. One wrong move and the trade deal dies. Marcus touched the plasma rifle on his hip. After 8 years in Earth's military, he knew how to handle himself. But this job was supposed to be easy money. Just guard duty while diplomats talked about mining rights. The Velkari delegation approached across the platform. Marcus had seen pictures, but seeing them in person was different. They were tall, at least 7 feet, with skin that looked like colored crystal. The leader's skin was bright gold, which Marcus remembered meant confidence or joy in their culture. Behind the leader walked 4 female Velkari in simple white robes. They moved with perfect grace, heads down, carrying trays of what looked like ceremonial items. Servants, Marcus thought, though something about the way they walked reminded him of soldiers. "Welcome to Zeltara," the golden-skinned leader said in accented English. "I am Trade Minister Kelrock. Empress Zara Lin waits for you in the Crystal Palace." The human delegation followed Kelrock through streets filled with curious Velkari citizens. Their skin shifted colors as the humans passed. Blues and greens that Marcus hoped meant interest rather than anger. The Crystal Palace was a massive structure that seemed to grow from a single piece of blue-white crystal. Inside, the walls glowed with soft light. Marcus felt like he was walking inside a giant gemstone. They entered a vast throne room. At the far end, on a throne carved from black crystal, sat Empress Zara Lin. Her skin was ice blue, shifting to silver at the edges. She was beautiful in an alien way, with sharp features and eyes like winter stars. 4 more Velkari in white robes stood behind her throne. Marcus noticed they stood exactly like the servants who had escorted them. Too exactly. His military training made him study them more carefully. Despite their humble posture, these women had the stance of trained fighters. "Humans of Earth," Empress Zara Lin said, her voice echoing in the crystal chamber. "You seek to strip mine our moon for rare metals. What do you offer in return?" Ambassador Chen, no relation to Marcus despite the shared name, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, we offer advanced terraforming technology, medical supplies, and defensive weapons systems." "We have no need for human weapons," the Empress replied. Her skin shifted to a deeper blue. "Our warriors are superior to yours in every way." Marcus saw Captain Rodriguez's jaw tighten. The captain was proud of Earth's military, as were most veterans. "With respect, Your Majesty, human soldiers have proven themselves across the galaxy." A new voice boomed across the throne room. "Have they?" A massive Velkari warrior entered from a side door. He stood nearly 8 feet tall with armor that looked grown rather than made. His skin was deep red with black lines running across it, colors Marcus didn't remember from the cultural briefing. "This is Champion Korath," the Empress said. "He has never lost a battle." Korath looked at the human delegation with obvious contempt. "These soft creatures think they can match Velkari strength? They look like they would break if I breathed on them." Ambassador Chen raised his hand diplomatically. "We come in peace, Champion. We're here to discuss trade, not warfare." "All life is warfare," Korath growled. "The strong take what they need. The weak serve or die." He pointed directly at Marcus. "You, human. You carry weapons like a warrior. Are you brave enough to face me?" Marcus felt every eye in the room turn to him. "This wasn't part of the job description. I'm just security for the delegation, Champion. I have no quarrel with you." "Then you are a coward." Korath's skin darkened further. "Your people offer us weapons, but their warriors are afraid to fight." Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. "Now wait just a minute." "I'll do it," Marcus said quietly. The throne room fell silent. Ambassador Chen turned to stare at him. "Marcus, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." Marcus stepped forward. "You challenged me directly, Champion." "I accept." Korath's mouth split in what might have been a smile, showing teeth like crystal fangs. "Excellent. We fight by the old laws. Single combat to the death." "To the death?" Ambassador Chen looked pale. "Surely there's another way." "The old laws are sacred," Empress Zara Lin said. Her skin had shifted to pure white, which Marcus remembered meant shock or fear. "But perhaps we should explain them fully." She stood from her throne, suddenly looking less confident. If an outsider defeats our royal champion in single combat, they claim dominion over the defeated's household by right of conquest. This includes, she paused, this includes the royal family and their personal servants. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. What exactly does that mean? One of the white-robed servants behind the throne, a woman with skin like silver starlight, spoke for the first time. It means if you win, we belong to you. All of us. The woman who spoke had violet eyes that seemed to look right through him. Despite her servant's robes, she held herself like a queen. Marcus realized with growing horror that this might be another member of the royal family. That's barbaric, Captain Rodriguez said. We won't be part of any slavery system. It is not slavery, Korath rumbled. It is the law of strength. When I kill this human, his people will know their place. Marcus looked around the room. The Empress's skin had gone completely white. The 4 servants behind her throne stood perfectly still, but he could see tension in their shoulders. They were afraid, and if I refuse the challenge, Marcus asked, then your people leave Zeltara forever? The Empress said quietly. And our worlds will know that humans are cowards who hide behind words. Ambassador Chen grabbed Marcus's arm. Think about this. The mining rights could feed billions of people on Earth. We need this deal. Marcus looked at Korath, who was examining his claws with obvious confidence. The champion was huge, armored, and had probably killed hundreds of opponents. Marcus was a good soldier, but he was only human. Then he looked at the Empress and her servants. They were trying to hide it, but they were terrified. If he lost, nothing would change for them. If he somehow won, when do we fight? Marcus asked. Korath's laugh echoed off the crystal walls. Now, if you wish. The crystal arena awaits. Marcus, Captain Rodriguez whispered urgently. This is insane. You can't win this. Maybe not, Marcus replied. But I have to try. The Empress stood slowly. Then let us go to the arena. The challenge has been made and accepted. By the old laws, it cannot be undone. As they left the throne room, Marcus caught the silver-skinned servant looking at him with something that might have been hope, or pity. He couldn't tell which would be worse. The crystal arena was exactly what it sounded like, a circular fighting pit carved from solid crystal, with thousands of seats rising up around it. Word had spread quickly, and Velkari citizens were already filling the stands. Marcus stood at one edge of the arena, checking his weapons. Standard plasma rifle, sidearm knife, and basic body armor. Across from him, Korath was stretching, his red skin gleaming in the crystal light. Last chance to run. Human, Korath called out. Marcus looked up at the royal box where the Empress sat with her servants. They were all watching him with those strange, beautiful alien faces. Not today, Marcus called back. The crowd roared. The impossible fight was about to begin. The arena fell silent as a Velkari official raised his hand. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat in the sudden quiet. Thousands of alien eyes watched from the crystal seats above. In the royal box, Empress Zaralyn sat perfectly still, her skin now a pale silver that meant fear. The challenge is witnessed, the official announced. Combat begins when the crystal sounds. A deep musical note rang out from the arena walls. Korath immediately charged. Marcus dove to the side as the champion's massive fist smashed into the crystal floor where he had been standing. The impact left a crater the size of a dinner plate. The crowd roared approval. Marcus rolled and came up firing. His plasma rifle sent bright blue bolts across the arena. They struck Korath's armor and bounced off harmlessly, leaving only small scorch marks on the strange metal. Is that all? Korath laughed, advancing slowly. Your weapons are like toys. Marcus kept moving, circling the arena's edge. He had fought bigger, stronger opponents before. The key was never to fight their fight, never meet strength with strength. Korath raised his right arm, and Marcus saw something that made his blood run cold. The champion's armor had built-in weapons, energy cannons that glowed with deadly light. The first blast nearly took Marcus's head off. He threw himself behind one of the crystal formations that rose from the arena floor. The energy beam hit the crystal and split into rainbow fragments that danced across the walls. Interesting, Marcus muttered to himself. He had noticed something important. The arena wasn't just a fighting pit. It was carved from natural crystal formations, and those formations were still connected to the planet's geology. Crystal could focus and redirect energy under the right conditions. Marcus had studied geology at the academy. It was part of military engineering training. Another energy blast forced him to move. Marcus sprinted from cover to cover, studying the arena's layout. There, a large crystal formation near the center, with smaller ones positioned around it like a focusing array. Korath was getting frustrated. "Stop running, coward. Face me like a warrior." "I am facing you," Marcus called back. "I'm just not stupid about it." The champion fired again, this time a sustained beam meant to cut Marcus in half. Marcus waited until the last second, then rolled behind the central crystal formation. The energy beam hit the crystal and did exactly what Marcus hoped. Instead of bouncing randomly, it focused through the crystal structure and reflected in a concentrated beam that struck Korath directly in the chest. The champion staggered backward, his armor smoking. For the first time, he looked surprised. "Lucky shot," Korath growled, but his voice had less confidence now. Marcus studied the champion's armor more carefully. It was impressive, but it was also alien technology he didn't fully understand. However, he did understand basic engineering principles. Every armor system had joints, weak points where movement was necessary. Korath charged again, moving faster than something that big should be able to move. Marcus waited until the last moment, then threw himself sideways and grabbed one of the smaller crystal formations. Using his momentum and the crystal as a pivot point, Marcus swung around and landed on Korath's back. The champion tried to reach him, but the armor's design made it impossible to bend that way. Marcus pulled out his combat knife and started working on the armor's neck joint. The metal was incredibly tough, but every armor had to have weak points where pieces connected. Korath spun and slammed backward into a crystal wall, trying to crush Marcus. The impact drove the air from Marcus's lungs, but he held on and kept working with the knife. The champion's armor was more advanced than anything on Earth, but it followed the same basic principles. Where pieces moved against each other, there had to be gaps. Marcus found the gap he was looking for and drove his knife into the joint mechanism. Korath roared and threw himself forward, finally dislodging Marcus. But something was wrong with his armor now. The neck piece was loose and sparks showed where Marcus had damaged the internal systems. "You fight like a scavenger," Korath snarled. "No honor." "I fight to win," Marcus replied, breathing hard. "Honor doesn't help dead soldiers." The champion raised both arms, energy cannons charging for a killing shot. Marcus saw his death approaching in the form of twin beams of destruction, but he also saw opportunity. Marcus grabbed a chunk of crystal debris and threw it not at Korath, but at the large central formation. The crystal struck at exactly the right angle, and Marcus dove toward a specific spot on the arena floor. Korath fired both cannons at once, pouring massive energy into the space where Marcus had been. The beam struck the central crystal formation and reflected in a complex pattern Marcus had calculated in his head. The reflected energy hit 3 smaller crystals in sequence, each one focusing and amplifying the beam. The final reflection was a concentrated lance of power that struck Korath's damaged neck joint with surgical precision. The champion's armor split open like a flower blooming. The energy beam, originally meant to kill Marcus, cut through Korath's body from neck to waist. For a moment, the arena was completely silent. Korath stood perfectly still, his armor holding his body in place even though he was already dead. Then the champion fell, his body separating into 2 pieces as his ruined armor crashed to the crystal floor. Marcus lay on his back, staring up at the crystal ceiling. He was alive. Somehow, impossibly, he was alive and Korath was dead. The silence stretched until it became uncomfortable. Then one Velkari in the stands began a slow, rhythmic clapping. Others joined in until the entire arena rang with applause. Marcus sat up slowly, his body aching from the impacts. Across the arena, Korath's body lay still. Steam rose from the melted armor where the reflected energy beam had cut through it. In the royal box, Empress Zara Lynn stood slowly. Her skin had gone completely white, not just pale but white like snow or bone. Behind her, the 4 servants in white robes stood with identical expressions of shock. "The challenge is complete," the arena official announced, his voice shaking. "The outsider has defeated our champion." The crowd's applause slowly died away as the implications sank in. An alien had killed their greatest warrior. More than that, a human had done it. A species they had considered weak and inferior. Marcus climbed to his feet and looked up at the royal box. The Empress met his eyes across the arena. Even from this distance, he could see she was terrified. "By the old laws," the official continued, Dominion over the defeated's household passes to the victor. Ambassador Chen was standing in the diplomatic section, his face pale with shock. Captain Rodriguez looked like he couldn't decide whether to cheer or run. Marcus walked slowly across the arena toward the royal box. Every step felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. He had won the fight, but what he had won was not something he had ever wanted. When he reached the base of the royal box, Empress Zaralyn looked down at him. Her skin was still white, but now there were small patches of blue, sadness or resignation. "I am yours by law," she said quietly, "as are my personal servants. We will come with you when you leave Zeltara." Marcus looked at the 4 women in white robes. Now that he studied them more carefully, he could see they were not really servants at all. They held themselves like warriors, like guards. Their eyes were alert and intelligent, not downcast like real servants would be. "What are your names?" Marcus asked. The silver-skinned woman who had spoken in the throne room stepped forward. "I am Liz, first guard of the royal household." She gestured to the others. "Nira, Quen, and Vex. We have served the Empress for 10 years. "Guards," Marcus said. "Not servants." "We are whatever our Empress needs us to be," Liz replied. "As we will be whatever you need us to be." Marcus looked back at the Empress. "Is there any way to change this law? To free you from it?" "The old laws cannot be broken," she said. "To try would mean death for me and chaos for our people. The law exists. You have won. We belong to you now." The arena was emptying slowly, Velkari citizens filing out in stunned silence. Their greatest warrior was dead, killed by an alien they had thought weak. Their Empress now belonged to that same alien. Marcus stood in the crystal pit where Korath's body lay cooling and wondered what he was supposed to do now. He had won a fight he never should have survived, but his victory had cost him something he wasn't sure he could live with. Above him, 5 alien women waited to learn their fate from the human who now owned them by right of conquest. The diplomatic quarters on the human ship felt cramped with 5 additional people, especially when 4 of them were 7-foot-tall alien warriors, and the 5th was their Empress. Marcus sat at the small table in his cabin, trying to process what had happened. "This is insane," Captain Rodriguez said for the 10th time. "We can't just take people as property. It goes against everything Earth stands for." Ambassador Chen paced nervously. "The legal implications are staggering. How do we explain this? To Earth Command? How do we explain it to the Galactic Council?" "We explain that we followed local law," Marcus said quietly. "The Velkari made the rules, I just won by them." Through the thin walls they could hear quiet conversation in the Velkari language. The Empress and her guards had been given the cabin next door. They had spoken very little since boarding the ship 3 hours ago. "But you don't want to own people," Captain Rodriguez said. "I know you, Marcus, this is eating you alive." Marcus rubbed his temples. "What I want doesn't matter. The Empress explained it clearly. If we try to break their law, she dies, and their planet falls into civil war. How many people die if that happens? Millions?" A soft knock interrupted their conversation. Ambassador Chen opened the door to find Liz, the silver-skinned guard who seemed to be their leader. "The Empress requests a private audience with Marcus Chen," she said formally. Marcus stood. "Of course." Liz led him to the neighboring cabin. The Empress sat on one of the narrow bunks, still wearing her formal robes from the arena. Her skin had shifted from white to a pale blue that reminded Marcus of winter sky. The other 3 guards, Nira, Quen, and Vex, stood against the walls. They had finally dropped their servant disguises completely. Now they wore the body language of professional soldiers, alert and ready. "You may sit," the Empress said, gesturing to the chair across from her. Marcus sat, feeling awkward. "Your Majesty." "Zaralyn," she corrected. "I am no longer an Empress. I am your property, as the law states. You should call me by my name." "I don't want to own anyone," Marcus said bluntly. "This whole situation is wrong." "But it is the law," Liz interjected. "The old laws have governed Velkari society for 3,000 years. They cannot be changed by wanting them to be different." Zaralyn studied Marcus with those strange, beautiful eyes. "You could have refused the challenge. Why did you accept?" Marcus thought about it. Korath was going to use my refusal to humiliate all humans. Your people would never have trusted us, but more than that. He paused. You were afraid of him. All of you. I could see it. Korath was a beast, Nira said quietly. She had skin like polished bronze and scars on her arms that spoke of many battles. He believed strength meant the right to take whatever he wanted. He had been pressuring the Empress to make him her mate, Quen added. Her skin was deep green with gold highlights. The law would have forced her to accept if he had defeated all her guards in combat. Which he nearly had, Vex finished. She was the youngest looking of the four, with skin like starlight and eyes full of anger. 2 more challenges and he would have won the right to claim her. Marcus looked at Zara Lynn. So my challenge saved you from a forced marriage? It saved me from rape disguised as marriage, she said bluntly. Korath cared nothing for consent or partnership. He wanted a trophy. The cabin fell silent. Marcus began to understand why none of them had objected to his challenge, even knowing the consequences. But now you're trapped with me instead, Marcus said. How is that better? You asked our names, Liz said simply. Korath never bothered to learn them in 5 years. You treat us as people, not objects. You're obviously not servants, Marcus said. You're elite guards. Why the disguise? Tradition, Zara Lynn explained. The Empress's personal guards have always posed as servants during formal occasions. It allows us to protect her while enemies underestimate our defenses. Smart, Marcus admitted. So what happens now? I can't take you back to Earth as slaves. My people would revolt. We understand human culture values freedom, Zara Lynn said. But we also understand the reality of our situation. We cannot return to Zeltara while the old laws stand. Korath had allies who will blame us for his death. Political enemies? Marcus asked. His brother, General Thakmor, Liz explained. He leads the military faction that believes Velkari should conquer other worlds rather than trade with them. With Korath dead and the Empress gone, he may attempt a coup. Marcus stood and walked to the small porthole, looking out at the stars. So you're exiles now, because I won a fight I never should have survived. You won because you understood something Korath did not, Zara Lynn said. Strength is not just about size or armor. Your people have survived and thrived because you adapt. You find ways to win that others never consider. The crystal arena, Nira said admiringly. You turned his own weapons against him. It was brilliant. It was desperate, Marcus corrected. I got lucky. Luck favors the prepared mind, Quen said. You studied the arena's structure while fighting for your life. That is not luck. That is skill. Marcus turned back to face them. What do you want from me? Really? Time, Zara Lynn said. Time to find a way to change the old laws without destroying our society. Time to build something better. And protection, Liz added. Thakmor will send assassins. He cannot allow you to live, knowing you defeated our greatest warrior. It would make him look weak. Great, Marcus muttered. So I have alien assassins to worry about now? You have us to worry about them, Vex said fiercely. We are your guards now, by law and by choice. No one will harm you while we live. Marcus looked at each of them in turn. They were all looking at him with expressions he couldn't quite read. Not fear, not resignation. Something else. What aren't you telling me? He asked. The 4 guards exchanged glances. Zara Lynn sighed, her skin shifting to a deeper blue. The law of conquest has other implications, she said quietly. It is not just about ownership. It is about partnership. The victor becomes the head of the household, but also its protector and provider. Meaning? Meaning that in Velkari culture, you are now our mate, Liz said bluntly. All of ours. The law recognizes no distinction between the Empress and her guards in this matter. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. What? It is an ancient law from a more primitive time, Zara Lynn said quickly. When warriors took mates by conquest, you are not required to, fulfill those obligations. We understand human customs are different, but the law remains, Nira said. On Zeltara, you would be expected to claim all of us as your wives. Marcus sat down heavily. This just keeps getting worse, does it? Quen asked softly. You saved us from Korath. You treat us with respect. You could do far worse than us for companions. Marcus looked at her, then at the others. They were all watching him with those alien eyes, waiting for his reaction. They were beautiful, in their strange way, and they were clearly intelligent, brave, and skilled. But they were also his prisoners, whether the law called it that or not. I need time to think, Marcus said finally. Of course. Zaralyn stood gracefully. We will not pressure you. The law gives you the right to choose how to proceed. As Marcus reached the door, Liz spoke again. Marcus. He turned back. Thank you, she said simply, for saving us from Korath. Whatever happens now, you gave us hope when we had none. Marcus nodded and left the cabin. In the corridor, he leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. 3 days ago, his biggest worry had been whether the trade negotiations would succeed. Now he was responsible for the lives of 5 alien women, had political enemies trying to kill him, and was apparently married to all of them by alien law. Sometimes he really hated his job. The attack came 2 weeks into their journey to the neutral trading station at Kepler 442. Marcus was in the ship's small gym, working through his daily exercise routine, when the alarm started screaming. All hands to stations. Captain Rodriguez's voice echoed through the ship. We have 3 unidentified vessels closing fast. This is not a drill. Marcus grabbed his gear and ran for the bridge. He found chaos waiting for him. On the main screen, 3 sleek Velkari warships were approaching in attack formation. They're not responding to hails, the communications officer reported. Energy signatures suggest they're charging weapons. Velkari military vessels, Ambassador Chen said, his face pale. But we have diplomatic immunity. Not anymore, Zaralyn said as she entered the bridge. She had changed from her formal robes into what looked like combat armor, made of the same crystal-like material as her skin. Those are Thakmor's ships. He has come to finish what his brother started. Behind her came Liz, Nira, Quen, and Vex, all wearing similar armor and carrying weapons Marcus had never seen before. They moved with the fluid grace of professional soldiers. How did they find us? Captain Rodriguez demanded. Thakmor has spies everywhere, Liz replied. He probably knew our departure time before we left orbit. The ship shook as the first energy blast struck their shields. The human vessel was a diplomatic transport, not a warship. It had basic defenses but no real weapons. Shields down to 60%, the tactical officer reported. They're targeting our engines. They want to disable us, not destroy us, Zaralyn said. Thakmor wants Marcus alive so he can kill him publicly. It will prove that humans are weak. Another blast rocked the ship. Marcus studied the tactical display, his mind racing. 3 military vessels against 1 unarmed transport. The math was simple and unfavorable. Can we outrun them? He asked. Not with our current engine configuration, Captain Rodriguez replied. They're faster and better armed. Then we fight, Vex said, checking her weapon. With what? Marcus asked. This isn't a warship. No, Nira agreed. But we are. She gestured to her companions. We are the Empress's personal guard. We have been training for combat since childhood, and we know Thakmor's tactics. Marcus looked at the 5 Velkari women. Their skin had all shifted to deep red and black, the colors of battle rage. They looked like creatures born for war. What do you need? He asked. Access to your ship's systems, Quen said, and trust. Marcus turned to Captain Rodriguez. Give them whatever they want. Marcus, the captain started. They know these ships better than we do. Marcus cut him off. And they're the reason we're being hunted. No, Zaralyn said firmly. You are being hunted because you showed strength. Thakmor cannot allow that to stand unchallenged. Another blast shook the ship. The lights flickered as power systems strained. Shields at 20%, the tactical officer called out. Liz moved to the communications console. I need to speak to them. The main screen changed to show the bridge of the lead Velkari vessel. A huge Velkari male with scarred red skin glared out at them. His armor was black with silver highlights, the colors of military command. General Thakmor, Zaralyn said coldly. Still hiding behind superior numbers, I see. Former Empress, Thakmor replied with a sneer, still hiding behind alien protectors. Where is the human who murdered my brother? Marcus stepped into view of the screen. Right here. Thakmor's eyes narrowed. You do not look like much of a warrior human. My brother must have grown soft to lose to something like you. Your brother was a coward who threatened women, Marcus replied. I gave him the fair fight he wanted. Fair? Thakmor laughed harshly. You used tricks and deception. Velkari warriors fight with honor. I used intelligence, Marcus said, something your brother lacked. Thakmor's skin darkened further. You will have the chance to prove your intelligence against me, human. Surrender now and I promise you a quick death. Counter-offer, Marcus said. Turn around and leave and I won't have to embarrass you like I did your brother. The transmission cut off. Immediately, all 3 Velkari ships opened fire. Shields are gone, the tactical officer reported as the ship shook violently. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4. They're moving to board us, Liz said, studying her scanner. Standard Velkari military doctrine, disable, board, capture. How long do we have? Marcus asked. Minutes, Nira replied. But we can make them pay for every step. Marcus looked around the bridge. The human crew was doing their best, but this wasn't their kind of fight. The Velkari women, on the other hand, looked completely at home with impending battle. What's the plan? He asked. We turn their doctrine against them, Quen explained. They expect to face untrained humans. Instead, they will face the Empress's guard fighting on familiar ground. This ship isn't familiar ground, Ambassador Chen pointed out. No, Zaralin said with a smile that was anything but peaceful. But we have something they do not expect. Which is? A human who thinks like a soldier instead of a warrior, Liz said. You proved that in the arena. Show us again. Marcus studied the ship's schematics on the tactical display. The Velkari would expect them to defend the bridge and other critical areas. Standard defensive doctrine. But Marcus wasn't thinking like a defender. He was thinking like an engineer. Can you access their ship systems remotely? He asked Quen. If I can get close enough to their boarding craft, yes. Velkari ships use crystal-based computers. I can interface with them directly. Good. Marcus pointed to a section of the ship's blueprints. Here's what we're going to do. 20 minutes later, the first Velkari boarding pod attached to the human ship's hull. Armored warriors cut through the airlock and entered what they expected to be a cargo bay full of panicking humans. Instead, they found an empty room with crystal formations arranged in a specific pattern. Before they could react, Quen activated the formations she had grown from, their ship's computer systems. The crystal network interfaced with the boarding pod's computers and transmitted a virus directly into the Velkari ship's main systems. Within seconds, the attacking vessel's engines, weapons, and life support began shutting down. One down, Quen reported with satisfaction. The second boarding pod tried a different approach, cutting into the ship's engineering section. They found Nira and Vex waiting for them in terrain they had modified to suit their fighting style. The Velkari warriors were good, but they had never faced opponents who knew their training better than they did. In close combat, with the human ship's narrow corridors limiting their numbers advantage, the 2 guards proved why they had been chosen to protect an empress. 2 down, Vex reported, barely breathing hard. The third ship, Thakmor's flagship, took a more direct approach. It docked directly with the human ship's main airlock and sent the general himself with his best troops. They found Marcus and Liz waiting in the main corridor. Marcus had his plasma rifle, but Liz carried something much more impressive, a Velkari energy weapon that looked like it belonged on a starship, rather than in someone's hands. Surrender, human, Thakmor called out. You cannot defeat all of us. I don't have to defeat all of you, Marcus replied. I just have to defeat you. He gestured to the walls around them. While the general had been focusing on the frontal assault, Zaralin had been busy in the ship's maintenance areas. Crystal formations now lined the corridors, carefully positioned and connected. You see, General, your brother made the same mistake you're making now. You think strength is about size and numbers and better weapons. Marcus raised his rifle and fired, not at Thakmor, but at a specific crystal formation. But real strength is about using what you have better than your enemy expects. The energy beam hit the crystal and reflected in a complex pattern that Marcus and Zaralin had calculated together. The reflected beam struck 6 different points along the corridor walls, the entire section of corridor filled with a web of deadly energy that cut down half of Thakmor's warriors in an instant. Impossible, Duckmore breathed. Improbable, Marcus corrected. But not impossible if you understand basic physics and have someone who knows crystal engineering. Liz stepped forward, her weapon trained on the general. Your forces are defeated, Thakmore. Your ships are disabled. Surrender. The general looked around at his fallen warriors, then at Marcus and Liz standing together. His skin shifted from battle red to the pale color of defeat. You fight like no warrior I have ever seen, he said to Marcus. I'm not a warrior, Marcus replied. I'm a soldier. There's a difference. What is the difference? Marcus thought about it. Warriors fight for glory. Soldiers fight to protect people they care about. He looked at Liz, then back at Thakmore. These women trusted me to keep them safe. That makes them worth fighting for. For the first time since boarding the ship, Thakmore looked directly at the Empress and her guards. He seemed to really see them for the first time. You would die for them, he said. It was not a question. Yes, Marcus said simply. And they would die for you. We would, Zara Lynn said, entering the corridor with Nira, Quen, and Vex behind her. He has proven himself worthy of our loyalty. Thakmore stared at them for a long moment. Then slowly he removed his weapon and placed it on the floor. I yield, he said formally. The human has proven his strength. The truth came out 3 months later, in the most unexpected way possible. Marcus was reviewing diplomatic reports in his quarters aboard the space station when Liz burst through the door without knocking. Her skin was flashing between red and white. Colors he had learned meant extreme agitation. We need to talk, she said urgently. All of us now. Within minutes, all 5 women were crowded into his quarters. Zara Lynn's skin was pale blue with worry, while the other 3 guards showed various shades of red and orange that meant anger. What's wrong? Marcus asked. I intercepted a transmission, Quen said, her technical skills having made her their unofficial intelligence officer. It was coded, but I broke it. She activated a small device and a Velkari voice filled the room. Marcus recognized it as Trade Minister Kelrock, who had first greeted them on Zeltara. The plan proceeds perfectly, Kelrock's voice said. The human killed Korath as expected. The Empress is removed from power. Phase 2 can begin. Another voice responded, one Marcus didn't recognize. Are you certain the human will be blamed for destabilizing our government? Of course, Kelrock replied. When Thakmore fails to kill him, we will claim the human has some secret weapon that makes him unbeatable. Fear will drive our people to demand action against Earth. Marcus felt cold understanding wash over him. It was a setup. The entire challenge, Nira said angrily. They manipulated Korath into challenging you. They knew he would invoke the old laws, but why? Marcus asked. Power, Zara Lynn said quietly. With me gone and Thakmore discredited, Kelrock becomes the most powerful figure on Zeltara. He can seize control of the government and blame humans for destabilizing their planet, Vex added. It gives him justification to attack Earth. Marcus stood and paced the small room. So Korath was a pawn. Thakmore was a pawn. Even I was a pawn. We all were, Liz said. But now we know the truth. The question is, what do we do about it? Marcus asked. Quen activated another device. I've been monitoring communications from Zeltara. Kelrock has declared martial law. He claims the Empress was kidnapped by human spies and that I and the other guards are traitors. How are the people responding? Zara Lynn asked. Badly, Nira reported. There have been riots in 3 major cities. The military is split between those loyal to Kelrock and those who question his authority. Civil war, Marcus said grimly. Which was probably part of the plan, Lise added. Create chaos, then step in as the strong leader who can restore order. Marcus looked at each of them in turn. Over the past months, they had become more than just allies. He had come to understand their culture, their honor, their strength. And they had adapted to human ways of thinking and fighting. More than that, he had come to care for them. Zara Lynn especially, but all of them. They were his team, his family, his... He still wasn't sure what to call their relationship by human standards. We have to stop this, he said. Agreed, Zara Lynn said. But how? Kelrock controls the government and most of the military. We are 5 people against an entire planet. 6 people, Marcus corrected. And we're not just any 6 people. He activated the room's communication system. Captain Rodriguez, please come to my quarters. And bring Ambassador Chen. When the 2 humans arrived, Marcus quickly explained the situation. Captain Rodriguez swore creatively while Ambassador Chen looked like he wanted to be sick. This could mean war between Earth and the Velkari, the ambassador said. Millions could die. Not if we stop it first, Marcus said. We need to expose Kelrock's conspiracy and restore legitimate government to Zeltara. How exactly do we do that? Captain Rodriguez asked. We go back, Zaralin said simply. I challenge Kelrock's authority publicly. Reveal his conspiracy. Rally the people who still remember what our government should be. That's suicide, the captain protested. You'll be arrested the moment you set foot on the planet. Not necessarily, Marcus said slowly. An idea was forming in his mind. What if we don't go as fugitives? What if we go as heroes? He turned to Quinn. You said there were riots. People questioning Kelrock's authority. What if they learned the truth about the conspiracy? How do we tell them? Nira asked. The same way Kelrock spread his lies, Marcus said. We broadcast the truth. Over the next week, they developed their plan. It was risky, dangerous, and probably insane. It was also the only chance they had. They would return to Zeltara with proof of Kelrock's conspiracy. But instead of trying to sneak in, they would announce their arrival and broadcast their evidence to the entire planet. The key is timing, Liss explained as they approached Velkari space. We have to get the truth out before Kelrock can silence us. And then? Captain Rodriguez asked. Then we trust the Velkari people to make the right choice, Zaralin said. The plan began as soon as they entered Zeltara's communication range. Quinn, using her technical skills and her knowledge of Velkari systems, hacked into the planet's communication network. Suddenly, every screen on Zeltara showed the same image, Empress Zaralin sitting beside Marcus Chen, with her 4 guards behind them. People of Zeltara, she began, I speak to you from exile to reveal a conspiracy that threatens our world. She told them everything. Kelrock's plan to use the challenge to remove her from power, the manipulation of Korath and Thakmor, the false claims about human aggression. Marcus Chen did not kidnap me, she said firmly. He saved me from a plot that would have destroyed our government and started a war with Earth. To prove her words, they played the intercepted communications from Kelrock and his conspirators. The evidence was overwhelming. By the time their ship reached Zeltara orbit, the planet was in chaos. But this time it was the right kind of chaos. People were marching in the streets demanding Kelrock's removal. Military units were declaring their loyalty to the true Empress. Incoming transmission, the communications officer reported. It's Kelrock. The screen showed the trade minister's face twisted with rage. His skin was black with fury. You have doomed us all, he snarled. The humans will destroy our civilization. The only one destroying our civilization is you, Zaralin replied calmly. Surrender, Kelrock. Your conspiracy has failed. Never, Kelrock screamed. I will die before I surrender to alien puppets. The transmission cut off. Within minutes, they received another call, this time from General Vextar, the military commander who had remained loyal to the crown. Empress, he said formally, Kelrock has barricaded himself in the government complex with his remaining supporters. The people demand your return. What about the old laws? Marcus asked. The ones that made her my property? The Council of Elders has met in emergency session, Vextar replied. They have voted to suspend the old laws of conquest. They were from a more primitive time and have no place in modern society. Zaralin looked at Marcus with surprise and something that might have been hope. You're free, Marcus said quietly. Yes, she said. We all are, but she didn't move away from him. Instead, she took his hand. Freedom means the right to choose, she said, and I choose to stay with you. Even though you don't have to anymore? Especially because I don't have to. The final confrontation with Kelrock was almost anticlimactic. Faced with overwhelming evidence of his crimes and abandoned by his supporters, the former trade minister surrendered without a fight. The new government, with Zaralin restored as Empress, formally apologized to Earth and established a new alliance based on mutual respect rather than conquest. There is one more matter, Zaralin announced during the formal ceremony. I have decided to step down as Empress, the crowd gasped. Marcus turned to stare at her. My people need a leader who understands both our traditions and the wider galaxy, she explained. General Vexitar will serve as regent while we establish a new form of government, one with elected representatives and constitutional limits on power. What will you do? Marcus asked. I have been offered a position as Velkari ambassador to Earth, she said with a smile. And my former guards have been invited to join a new interspecies diplomatic corps. And us? Marcus asked quietly. What are we? Whatever we choose to be, she replied. The old laws no longer bind us. We can be partners, allies, friends, or something more. Marcus looked at her, then at Liz, Nira, Quen, and Vex. They had been through war together, faced impossible odds together, and emerged victorious. They were his team, his family. I know what I choose, he said. What? Zara Lynn asked. All of the above, Marcus replied. And for the first time since this whole crazy adventure began, he smiled without reservation. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the new Earth Velkari diplomatic station, watching ships from both worlds dock together in peace. Behind him, Zara Lynn was reviewing trade agreements while Liz coordinated security, and the other 3 women planned cultural exchange programs. They had all chosen new lives together, as equals and partners. The old laws of conquest were history. In their place was something better, an alliance built on respect, understanding, and choice. Marcus had never expected to defeat an alien champion in single combat. He certainly never expected to help prevent a war or fall in love with 5 alien women who could probably bench press a small car. But then, the best things in life were usually unexpected. Marcus, Zara Lynn called out. Come look at this.